The East Side is an urban space. It's also a more urbane space. It's not a place that is identified as any one particular group. It kind of belongs to everybody. The East Side is the area obviously east of the Milwaukee River, inside the city, runs from downtown up to Edgewood, which is the Shorewood border. And what always surprises people is that in a city of 100 square miles, the East Side has only 4 square miles. And the impression you have is that the East Side sort of has this outsized role to play in Milwaukee's culture and social life, tastes and trends. It's really a center of activity, very dense as well. The role it plays in the city is larger than its size might indicate. The way it's divided geographically, you've got the Lower East Side that runs up to around North Avenue, and then you've got the Upper East Side going all the way up to Edgewood, and then you have the North Point neighborhood, kind of this slice of very nice homes along the lake. Lower East Side, you have a really large supply of affordable and plentiful housing, so that became the headquarters of Milwaukee's counterculture. You know, that was Brady was without doubt sort of Milwaukee's Haight-Ashbury. That's where the head shops were, the newsstands, the night spots. That was the scene in Milwaukee. That was my coming of age, so I spent a lot of time on Brady Street as well. And I can recall at Water Tower Park, just above Brady, kind of watching the sunrise, you know, and to someone putting on canned heat on their boombox. So it was kind of some pretty sharp memories. They would put detergent in the Water Tower fountain, and so you have these massive bubbles. It was a happening place to be. What happened was the Poles were the first group to move through, then the Italians came through, so you still have a strong Italian presence there with the restaurants, the shops, Glorioso's, Mima's, still Shortino's Bakery, not too far from Art Smart's Dart Mart. It's become somewhat more genteel without losing, kind of its edge. Talk about restaurants. You can spend a long time eating your way from east to west or vice versa. Then you have institutions like the Milwaukee State Teachers College, which was built back in 1909, which is now Mitchell Hall for UWM. The campus was one building. Mitchell Hall was the whole thing, and it keeps on expanding to the north and the west. So it had a huge impact on culture, on housing, and on parking. Oriental Theater goes back to 1927. It's been a real anchor of entertainment on Milwaukee's East Side, right in that seam between the Upper and the Lower East Sides. And that was one of a relative handful, 5 or 6 of the atmospheric movie houses that really tried to take you someplace else. Where else but the East Side, where else but the Oriental, which you have the Rocky Horror Picture Show in Milwaukee. It's got to be in that neighborhood, so it retains an awful lot of vitality. It's still a major draw. There is place for every lifestyle on the East Side. The only norm you could possibly conform to is nonconformity. The real contrast on Milwaukee's East Side is between the river and the lake. This intensely urban stretch of Milwaukee that we call the East Side is flanked on 2 sides by some of the finest green space in the region. River on one side, lake on the other. Upper East Side is among the most prestigious and best-looking neighborhoods in Milwaukee. You have these wealthy families kind of moving up and building larger versions and later versions of the houses that were back in the Victorian period, back there on Prospect Avenue. The contrast still, to this day, there are 15 houses per block on the lake at Kenwood Boulevard and 30 at the river. So those contrasts are kind of baked into the landscape. As I said, tender freshmen and tenured profs, living on the same block, and that's a lot of the vibe on the Upper East Side. Lake Park goes back to 1890, and it was one of the first 6 big parcels purchased by the city of Milwaukee. This is before Milwaukee County was doing parks. This is the city of Milwaukee Park. You have this emerald ribbon of green space along the lakefront, and there's no doubt that if this is kind of a necklace, the Lake Park is the most lustrous, gem or pearl in that entire necklace. What I really love about Lake Park is this combination of really public space, like up around Bartolotta Restaurant, the statue, the North Point Lighthouse, the Lion Bridge, that's kind of everyone's zone. You kind of go through there and you say, yeah, this is metropolitan. You get down those ravines and it's hard to believe, you're a mile from a major city's downtown. That's a really nice signature for one of Milwaukee's finest parks. There are two North Point landmarks, and the most prominent is the North Point Water Tower, which is on the east end of North Avenue. And all that's inside there is a 4-foot in diameter iron standpipe that was to relieve pressure on the water mains as the pumps on the lakefront would bring the water up in pulses. And there was a simple way of equalizing pressure and letting water back into the mains gradually. So it was conservation, basically. That's been the East Side's most prominent symbol ever since. They haven't used that standpipe for a long time, but it's still the East Side's icon. Just a little bit north, you got the North Point Lighthouse, and that goes back to 1855 on that site. What actually happened was they had to lift the lighthouse off its foundation and put in a larger, higher foundation beneath it so it would clear the trees as Lake Park was forested, as those trees grew up. That's life on the East Side. It's always been kind of this crossroads, this mingling of currents. It still is today.
East Side City, kid, don't look so down. Uptight and turned around, waiting for someone to breathe you in and out. East Side City.